Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down.
Alright, here we are, folks.
Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in us. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna let it rain. Tonight, we're gonna let it rain. Tonight, we're gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we're gonna let it rain.
Welcome back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that since Simon's down in Boulders, folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the program once again. Salve, servus, goeiedag, bonjour. Scott. Welcome back to the program. Today is January the 18th of January 2024. Got that all backwards, didn't I? Well, first off, very quickly, the song that Courtney's asking about, it's not a techno song. It's Robin Huston. Light It Up is the name of the song. Robin Huston, Light It Up has become the theme song for the channel. I'll be changing the graphics and images and video a little bit in there to make a more global feel for it. That's a all South Africa version of it, but when I've got some time. But not right now. So welcome back to the program, folks. Prior to that was, of course, Giselle with Für uns Mensa. Afrikaans is ons Visa. Afrikaans is our essence. Of course, Afrikaans is one of the 12 official languages of the Republic of South Africa, a country of diversity beyond belief. Diversity of human experience, diversity of ethnicity, diversity of language, diversity of faith, diversity of origins, diversity of flora, of fauna. What an absolutely incredible country South Africa truly is, and it's wasted on a communist cabal that is running it into the ground. But welcome back to the program, folks. We'll talk to you about today's news. Busy day today. Last night had a radio program in which we covered extensively Donald Trump's massive wiping of the table of his opponents in Iowa and how the media are trying to portray it as something else. Donald Trump's campaign is in disarray. He managed to get only 50%. That means almost half the Republicans vote against him. Donald Trump got the highest amount of votes in an Iowa caucus in the history of the Iowa caucus. Donald Trump took the largest margin of victory between opponents ever, which was 12.8%, and more than doubled that to 30 points from his next closest competitor in a big field with 5 candidates. 5 candidates, Donald Trump got 50% of the vote. That's not the party's divided. These people are demonic in their dishonesty. I mean, honestly, if Nikki Haley had gotten 30%, they'd have been talking about, ooh, Trump's in trouble. Even if he got 50%. It's ridiculous. Unbelievable. The fake journalists, the fake media outlets, the fake commentators, and the hate wankers all over social media. And look, once again, for those who are not keeping score, this is not a pro-Trump statement. This is simply a statement of facts here. This is an unprecedented historical victory in Iowa. And it doesn't mean Trump's the nominee, although a lot of Republicans are saying that. It doesn't mean to be the president. A lot of people believe that. A lot can happen between now and November, as we saw in 2020, when the lies about the Rona scam caused Donald Trump to lose his presidency. So, Paulie's here, the brains behind the operation. Welcome, Paulie. Aren't you busy with fires? I see there was a big fire in Paarl, but it was under control. It was contained. Loudy, Monday's back. How you doing? David Suber, welcome to you. Courtney McBride with a super chat before he goes off to deliver the mail. United States Postal Service. Thank you for that. Gypsy Backpackers. You know, Courtney, it's kind of cool that you work for the Postal Service. Now I can say I know a postal employee. I didn't know any before you. Just kind of know guys by face, by waving to them. So we got Vilma Rasmus here. Light Rain, Garrett Gillich, Allison Johnson, Carlos Mango. And then Janet Liddy's in from South Africa. We've got Mark Sayers. Welcome to you. Ryan Diaga, Diversity of Corruption. Hey, Ryan, welcome to you. Ryan Diaga, okay. Val Cooper's back. Val, we hadn't seen you. Have you been quiet? What's going on? Javier Millet burnt. Oh, he did? I didn't see. What did he say? I didn't see any comments. The mainstream media did not cover anything about the leader of Argentina was not mentioned anywhere in the news about the Davos situation. What I can say about Davos is this is beyond corrupt. The world needs to pay attention to what's happening at Davos, these wealthy elite connecteds who go there. You know, it's very much hilarious. It's almost like a Mike Myers comedy, you know? Remember, So I Married an Axe Murderer? He says that fortnightly, the Gettys, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and Colonel Sanders, before he went tits up, they would go to the place in Colorado called the Meadows to plot domination of the world. The Pentaveret. Yeah, in fact, he made a miniseries, which I don't think it was all that well received, but it was hilarious, called The Pentaveret. Sonny Jim. Yes, Mike Myers got this right 2 decades ago about Davos and the World Economic Forum. This is a corrupt, evil body of elite, privileged people who look down upon those of us who are just peons in the global mix and hope and pray for our demise so they can live their luxurious lives without any interruption. That's really what's going on here. Davos and the World Economic Forum have brought no good to the world. They've brought no harmony. They've brought no peace. They've brought no economic development. All they brought is divisiveness, racism, bigotry, anti-Semitism, anti-whiteism, and hatred of humankind. That's what Davos brings. Now they admit freely. They are so comfortable now telling the world what their plans are that they just say it. One of their idiots sat on stage yesterday and said that, well, you know, we have crafting an app now. It'll soon be available, and every individual can track every bit of their carbon production, from what you eat to when you went to school to how you got to work to the transport you took. You'll be able to know exactly what your carbon footprint is. It'll all be in one app. Well, of course it will be. Now, the implied reason for that is so that every individual can be conscious of how much carbon they're putting into the atmosphere. Let's take a look at this, because the guy in Australia, all right, percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That's not helping there. They're saying it's 50% higher it was before the Industrial Revolution. 0.04% of the Earth's atmosphere. 0.04. Or 0.04. Not even 1/10. 4/100ths of 1% of the carbon in the air, of the atmosphere, is carbon dioxide. 4/100ths of 1%. Yeah. So, anyway, they want you to be hungry and cold and freezing. And that's exactly what they're up to. So the app, of course, will be designed so that they can collect all the data so they can punish you. They'll know exactly where you are, where you go, what you do, who you eat with, what you don't eat. And they'll be able to punish transgressors, kind of like the China social scores. Yeah, scary stuff. Ricky Gervais at the Oscars. Oh, that's awesome, Ryan. I'm going to have to see if I can't find the video for that. Somewhere along the way, I've been otherwise occupied when you go live. I do listen cash up style. You'll see I leave it. Yes, I do see that, Val. No, I'm not. You don't have to defend not watching the program. I'm just saying we hadn't seen you. We miss you. James Moriarty is here, folks. Sherlock's nemesis is back in the house. Good to see you there, James. Let me take a look here. Let me tell you something before we get into the news. It's kind of entertaining. And it also talks about the green energy nonsense. When I say green energy, look, I have no problem with reducing pollution. So the green energy nonsense. So yesterday, of course, it had snowed. The previous day, and my roof was completely covered with snow. Not much, a couple inches, but all the solar panels were covered. There's a house down the street that has more solar panels, bigger ones, thicker ones, and then one up the street's got solar panels, and I think there's 4 houses in this neighborhood of 43 that have solar panels, including mine. Well, guess what? Nothing. No solar production because the sun couldn't get through the snow on the roof. And once again, proving the futility of this sort of alternative energy because it's unreliable, intermittent, and not there when you need it. This is the problem with alternative energy, except for things like hydro, which can run all the time unless there's a massive drought. But we're tearing down hydroelectric dams and destroying renewable energy in the Pacific Northwest in the name of who knows what, the Klamath River. Anyway, back to the point here. So yesterday I left the house for an appointment. I had a meeting in the county seats. I had to travel down there to meet some folks and talk about some issues. And I left here at about 12:30. I didn't check my phone until a few hours later, and I had 0 kilowatt hours produced. But about 3 hours later, I looked, and suddenly it was almost 14 kilowatt hours. I'm like, what? Is this an error? What's so wrong? And I looked, what's going to happen? So I looked at the production by hour that day, and I could see that it went from 0 kilowatt hours to about 4 kilowatt hours per hour produced around 1 p.m. the sun, even though it was well below freezing, was enough to loosen up the snow on my solar panels, and it all came sliding off. 90% of the panels clear. So when I came home last night from the Veteran Service Organization, I drove to the neighborhood and looked at who had solar panels. One house, all their panels completely covered in snow. I drove down. I could see my house because it actually can see it through a break in people's yards. Driving down one street, I can see it head on, coming in from the west to the east. And I could see my panels almost completely clear. And then I saw the other two houses, theirs are covered. And I could see exactly the moment that my panels began acquiring energy from the sun. Well, today, there's virtually no energy from the sun because the panels are clear, but there's no sun. It's cloudy outside, really nasty looking. We're supposed to get more snow, and it's not looking pretty. So right now, just 1 kilowatt hour. Well, maybe that'll change, but we'll see. Need the sun to come out. So there you go, folks. Folks in Chicago complaining that the chargers don't work, the lines, the queues are ultra long, that the batteries don't charge or don't say charge in their electric vehicles. Well, guess what? I told you so. And for those who rely on solar power as their main source of energy here in a northern latitude, well, guess what? It don't work. When you need it, it's not there. Anyway, so not dismissing it. There is value to it. Hey, look, I've produced over 1 megawatt of electricity. That means the power plant didn't have to produce that power. So, poof, there you go. Anyway, welcome back, folks. All right, so Dan Hooks here. Our bot is here. Monray, welcome to you. Chris Wanapole, welcome, Chris. Grasshopper, hello. How am I missing all these people here? How am I missing them? Gypsy Backpackers. I already said Moriarty. All right, cool. Let's get on into it. So, by the way, I got to cover this. I know I talked to Ronaldo about this. After this, you'll be automatically redirected to Wednesdays with the Colonel on Thursday. Ronaldo, I'll be talking. I have to depart that a little bit early, so I'll be there for at least 45 minutes, and then I've got to dash off to another meeting. I've got another meeting today at 1 o'clock. So, yeah, salt batteries will be the next meeting. Well, salt batteries are a big thing, Grasshopper. Not salt batteries, but molten salt to store energy. And that comes from solar thermal, which, what are they calling it now? It used to be, gosh, I forget the name of that. There's been a couple names for it. But anyway, solar thermal is when you have big mirrors that reflect the rays of the sun into one central point, and they heat up molten salt. The molten salt pours down underground, is stored in underground tanks, and it is used, and the energy, the heat from it is released throughout the night to give you consistent electricity production as that heat turns water to steam. The steam turns to turbines, generates electricity, and that is how you get those things. Yeah, that's had a couple different names, solar thermal, but that's what I used to call it. But it's got another name for it now. So yeah, that's not new. It's not becoming a thing. It's already a thing. In fact, we've talked about how the Sahara Desert could provide all the power for all of Europe. Every single kilowatt hour of electricity for Europe could be generated in the in the Sahara Desert without even covering a huge portion of it with these things. But the feasibility of it's a question. It could cost upwards of $1 trillion to do that. And you have to build these massive transmission lines under the Mediterranean to Europe. It's a very risky operation, but it can be done. And in fact, it could power all of Africa for that matter with that and then some. Yep. All right. So the fact that we are the right distance from the star is cool. Yeah, oh, no kidding, Patrick. You know, our luck is unbelievable. Hey, speaking of Davos, that's a Doctor Who, Davos, that's the planet. Yeah, so Doctor Who is from Davos. Now, speaking of Davos, not Davros, but Davos. Speaking of Davos, did you see these millionaires and billionaires, these rich, arrogant pricks like Simon Pegg, the not funny actor from the UK, Brian Cox, the American actor who acts like he's Irish, and then, of course, Abigail Disney, the heir to a fortune, as well as one of the Rockefellers, all moaning and saying, proud to pay more, tax us, we the ultra-rich, we're begging you to tax us. Again, just pull out your checkbook and write a check. This is just virtue signaling by a bunch of idiots who know it's never going to happen. And when it does happen, they'll find a way to evade it. They're just shameful, shameful trolls and horrible people. Yep. 270 millionaires and billionaires urge the world leaders congregating in Davos in Switzerland to tax their wealth. Our request is simple. We ask that you tax us, the very richest in society. 268 millionaires and billionaires from 17 countries. That just tells you that people who have money aren't necessarily very bright. Again, if Simon Pegg wants to level the playing field, write a check. I'm sure the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK would be thrilled to have that additional millions of pounds coming into the British treasury so they can give it to criminal alien invaders and house them in places better than Brits who pay taxes live. I'm sure that they would love that. Simon Pegg seems like a doofus in film, but reality is a horrible person. Yeah, there you go, Grasshopper. That's probably a good description of him. Nothing wrong being rich, just one thing you need to remember, never forget where you come from. Well, that's the problem, Daniel Prinsloo. And ladies and gentlemen, I had a conversation with people yesterday, and I mentioned, in passing, I said, I joke around about, knowing everything or being a smart guy and that sort of thing, but honestly, it's self-deprecating humor. Whenever I get too big for my britches, I remember where I came from. I remember living in poverty. I remember not having anything. I remember walking home from baseball and tennis practice for miles and miles every night because I had no ride. I remember the $3 tennis racket, $3.99 tennis rackets I got from, was it Ben Franklin's store, I think it was, that snapped in the middle when I was playing a game. And one of my teammates had to loan me their tennis racket that cost obviously a lot more than $3.99 so I could continue my match. Despite that, I was the number 1 doubles team and the number 3 singles starter for that team. I remember that in that year, I didn't have tennis shorts. You couldn't just wear any shorts. You had to wear proper tennis shorts to play tennis. And my coach gave me a pair of shorts that I wore into my 20s. I'll never forget that. I'll also never forget that when I was a young soldier in Reforger, the Return of Forces to Germany exercise in 1985, that I was sent for guard duty. And originally I was supposed to put in a communication signal, but unfortunately the steering gearbox in my crappy Dodge pickup truck, known as an M880, my Dodge pickup truck, snapped. I was going up a hill driving in the wintertime, snow and ice all over the road. The road curved about 90 degrees to the left. I was turning left. I turned the steering wheel and the truck went straight. And the wheel just spun around like this because it snapped. It was no longer connected to the steering. The gearbox snapped. So I kept going straight. Fortunately, I was going up a hill because I had a trailer behind me with generators on it, 2 5 kW generators and antenna mounts, which weigh a lot, plus camouflage netting, and all that, which pushes the truck, driving up that hill. And fortunately, I was going uphill and I just drove straight into a driveway and was able to come to a complete safe stop. But the upshot of that story is that I no longer had the mission. It had to get in. They needed that signal in. So the backup team replaced me because their truck continued on, and I sat there for hours. I think I spent like 10 or 12 hours waiting for a recovery truck to come help. It was quite cold too. Anyway, that was January Reforger 1980. It almost seems like it never happened now. It's so long ago. It's a memory that's up here, and it's just, wow. It's almost like it never happened, but it did happen. And so the consequence of that is that when I got to the site that night, I didn't have a job. So I was a gopher and I did this and I did that. And it was horribly cold. It was below freezing. Anyway, long story short, I pulled guard duty frequently. Well, they sent me out for guard duty. The sergeant did. And I was there for 2 hours, and we have general orders. General orders is I will guard everything within the limits of my post, quit my post only when properly relieved. That's your first general order. That never changes in the Army when you're on guard duty. It's a general order. You have 3 general orders, and then you have special orders for that post. Well, on my general order, I didn't quit. I wasn't properly relieved. For a 2-hour guard shift in sub-zero weather, I stood there for 14 hours, neglected, as people drove onto the site and I checked their identification and let them pass and in and out. They left me there for 14 hours before I was relieved. So whenever I get too big for my britches and I take myself too seriously, I remind myself that I was so unimportant that they left me to freeze to death in January of 1985. Which Reforger, David? There was a January Reforger. That was the big one. That was up near Gießen, and that's where I was at. Yep. January 1985. Yep. And that was also the Reforger, or no, it wasn't that one. I'm trying to remember if it was, it was that one. That was Reforger when some idiot repaired our water buffalo, which is a water, it's a trailer with a big tank that you put potable water in to drink. Anyway, so some idiot took an epoxy to fix a seal on the valve because you got a valve that comes onto it and then you twist it to get the water out. Well, it must have broken because of the cold weather or something like that. So they replaced the valve, and when they did, they put an epoxy so it wouldn't leak. Well, they used the wrong epoxy, and then all the water tastes like plastic. It was disgusting. It was not dangerous, so they told us. But so was the food because they cooked with that water. So our mermites are these aluminum containers that have usually 3 little pots down inside of them, and You have water at the bottom that's boiled. You put the pots in there. It raises up. It keeps the food warm. You seal it, and the food stays warm for a long time. And so that's how you get your food. So they would take the mermites to remote sites like mine out on a hilltop in the middle of nowhere because that wasn't where a concentration of troops were. So the NCOs would drive that stuff around, bring us our rations and such, and also our meals ready to eat. We'd get those as well. But we had those on hand. So the mermites would come around, and the food tastes horrible. We couldn't eat it. So for 3 weeks, I didn't eat any hot food. All I ate was MREs, meals ready to eat. And we didn't have enough of them. They didn't give us any extra. So we were really hungry when we came back. But that was refortunate. So when I get too big for my britches, I remember that that's how unimportant I was to people. And quite frankly, how important am I to people right now? If I passed, would people even notice? Is Chris gone? I don't know. Anybody see his program lately? Well, that's what happened when we went into the gulag a couple years ago. When the channel was gone, I had 23,000 subscribers. And then when I disappeared and I came back and people were told about it on other channels and I appeared on other channels, 2.5, almost 3 years later, we only have 13,800 subscribers. So if I disappeared, would anybody even notice? Well, you hope that you leave a mark on the planet, that you leave the place better than you found it. At least decent, moral, honorable people feel that way. That's how I feel about life. And I hope that I've left this planet a better place when I leave it, and I think I have. I'm pretty confident I've done that. Also know pretty confidently that I've treated people fairly. And that is my moral guidestone, treating people fairly and justly. Yep. That first speech I gave at the Reformation Society was moral, right, and just in the face of injustice and tyranny. Yep. And that's exactly how I feel about life. And if people don't like that, they can shove it. They can go elsewhere. If you feel it's okay to oppress people based on their skin color, based on their ethnic origin, based on their physical disabilities, based on their appearance, based on their skin pigmentation, based on religious affiliation, then you and I have nothing in common. And I'm talking specifically to people on the far left and on the far right. We have nothing in common, and you're wasting your time listening to me or following me around. That's just where I come from. And if that upsets people and reduces the size of the audience, then that's what it does. That's what it does. But I also don't shy away from calling things out. And we're going to talk about racism in the South African police service here in Paarl shortly. And telling you how the South African government shields racists if they're the right skin pigmentation and doesn't root them out. They only root out racists who are in the minority that they fear or hate. Yep. Marilyn says, we noticed you disappeared. Searched all over till we found you on Facebook. Ah, okay. Well, now people know a little bit better who are here, where they can find me. But I mean, I already had a Rumble account. I already had an Odyssey account. I know that South Africans don't use that. I already had a Facebook account. I already had a Twitter account. And that time I had a Parler account. But people couldn't find me. Ah, Erica, yes. Well, thank you. It's very kind. And likewise, Erica. Nothing to do with global warming. It has to do with the angle of the sun in winter versus summer. That's really... Huh? What, Rebel Canners? Do you know the artist Rodriguez? Off topic. Yeah, I've heard of Rodriguez, but I don't really follow. Menage a Qua's here. What's the big red one stationing? Oh, okay. Oh, Gürpingen. Cook Barracks, Gürpingen. Well, there you go, David. Pretty cool. I was stationed at Rose Barracks, Maurice Rose Barracks in Bad Kreuznach, assigned to the 8th Signal Battalion. I was in Charlie Company, 8th Signal, and my rig was Charlie 212. An M880 Dodge pickup truck that I painted, whose generators I repaired, even though I was not a generator technician. Yep, Charlie 212. And we used to call ourselves Signal's Best Relay. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Why does the sun look... Oh, that's what Val said. Why does the sun look brighter and feel hotter when it's supposed to be moving out of the summer? Oh, okay, Val. And I think that who answered that? Somebody answered it. Rebel Canners, yeah. No, that's the reason why we get less sunlight in the Northern Hemisphere at this time of year. Now, South Africa is pretty consistent because it's just at the right latitude that South Africa and Botswana pretty much get the sun going down almost the same time year-round. Slight variation. But it's not the same here. We're at the right latitude where in the wintertime the sun disappears early. That's why we have daylight savings time. And in the summertime, when the Earth's rotation tilts us back the other way so that we're getting the sun more directly, more head-on, which is what the Southern Hemisphere is getting right now. The Earth is tilted on its axis, so the Southern Hemisphere is getting the sun hit directly now, whereas we're getting a glance of the sun. In the Northern Hemisphere, the sun is glancing off of us right now. And that's why solar production is not as good as it can be. My best day of solar production since the panels went live in November, I think, was 26 kilowatts per hour. Wait till the summertime when the sun hits the top of my roof earlier in the morning and stays till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. My solar production, I anticipate, is going to double or more, hopefully. because not only will there be more hours of sunlight, but the sun will be closer to directly overhead. And as a consequence, get much more direct energy photovoltaic energy coming from those light particles traveling through space from the sun, 93 million miles away, to our planet, the big blue marble. So I think that supplements what Rebel Candler said. Rebel, you can contradict me if I've got something wrong. Casper Labaskagni says they don't miss an opportunity to reinforce our status as useless eaters in the new global dispensation. No, they don't. And thank you for looking for me, Marilyn. I really appreciate that. If I change the measurement system, then I cannot compare past temperatures, current temperatures, and say it's hotter. Exactly. Exactly. Why are the polar ice caps receding year on year? Why are the polar ice caps receding year on year? Well, actually, they haven't been. It's a lie, Grasshopper. You've been misled by the media. Just 2 years ago, we had reports of how the Ross ice shelf in Antarctica had actually grown, and the extent of ice in Antarctica was greater than it had been in ages. Yes, there's a pathway opening up potentially in the Northern Hemisphere, but why? Because this stuff happens. This stuff happens. Look, take humans out of the equation. Humans were only burning a few trees and twigs and things like that, not even coal, before the Industrial Revolution. And the number of humans on the planet was only in the millions, not in the billions. So humans are not responsible for the Little Ice Age, which caused the extinction of the Viking settlement in Greenland. They're not responsible for that. Ladies and gentlemen, the Thames froze over during the Little Ice Age. Fruit froze. There was no spring. It went directly from winter to summer, and not much of a summer at that. We also had times when, like, Krakatoa exploded thousands of years ago, expelling huge amounts of ash into the air and greenhouse gases from Krakatoa in Indonesia. The entire planet's air surface was covered by that crap, amazing amount of stuff in the air. And it caused a global winter. The Earth is a planet rotating on its axis 93 million miles from a flaming ball of gas. Things happen. The Earth changes. It wobbles. We have movement of tectonic plates. We have things that happen. The melting of global ice sheets has happened in the past. And they have also frozen in the past. The way that early settlers got to the British Isles wasn't by crossing the English Channel. It was by walking from France. You do realize that there was no water in the English Channel thousands of years ago because the Ice Age sucked up all the water. Then it melted and the channel filled. But people were already in Britain. They died out. And then we had another little ice age. Just in the 1970s, scientists said that the ice age was coming. The planet's going to freeze. It's cooling down. Well, apparently that's not the case. Now they've changed their tune. Shows you the hubris of human beings. Look, yes, there have been huge amounts of ice melting in Antarctica and in the Arctic. Yeah, and we were lied to a few years ago telling us that Cape Town was experiencing a drought because of global warming. But ladies and gentlemen, nobody, even for a second, other than me, I didn't see any analyst, I didn't see any commentator, I didn't see anybody writing or talking anywhere while this was going on saying the following. Well, could it be that the problem in Cape Town is the following? In 1911, when the first census of South Africa was taken, the population of Cape Town metropolitan area was much less than 1 million. Today, the population is about 4 million. In the greater area, it's about 5.5 million. So those people who didn't have dishwashers, almost none of whom had swimming pools, who weren't involved in industrialization for the most part, that was just coming to that part of Africa, who didn't drive automobiles, who didn't produce things, all of these things consume water. So the liters or gallons per person consumed per capita in 1911, I'm going to argue, are probably exponentially or at least arithmetically lower than they are in the 21st century. Take the amount of water per person used and then take the number of people that has grown from 300,000 or 400,000 to 5.5 million, and you have a problem. The earth would have to have more rain just to accommodate them unless you use water more effectively and more efficiently. Well, the National Party built dams, reservoirs all over the Western Cape to store water. But during the drought caused by global climate change a couple years ago, they were nearly out of water. Now, why were they out of water? One, too many people using too much water. Nature doesn't meet our needs just because we move to a place and decide to use things. You use existing resources, or you adapt the terrain to suit your needs. The Western Cape should have built a desalination plant decades ago. They haven't done it to anticipate massive population growth in such a lovely location, aside from the Cape Flats. What about water usage? Well, 30 to 40% of all water that's piped from those sources to destinations is lost through leaky pipes because the pipes have not been maintained by the ANC and the DA. Additionally, many places in desert environments, like in California and Arizona, capture runoff water or wastewater. They do minimal treatment so that it's not suitable for human consumption, and then they make that water available for things like lawns, gardening, and industrial use, things that don't need to have that cleaning for human consumption. There's no brown water reuse facility in Cape Town. There's no maintenance of the pipes. And then on top of that, we have the tragedy of the commons. The tragedy of the commons in Cape Town, when you go to the Cape Flats, there is a communal tap sitting in the center of town. People turn it on, they walk over, they fill their buckets up and go wash cars for a couple rand, and they leave the tap running. Millions of liters of water pissed down the drain and wasted because they're not paying for it. So they don't give two squats. These are the reasons why Cape Town had a problem. Yes, there was a drought. Yes, it was severe. Yes, it was unusual. But it could easily have been managed had competent authorities been running the water management for Cape Town. That's right, DA, I'm talking about you. Competent authorities. Weather patterns are cyclical. That is correct. I went to Bermuda and the sea level is the same as the buildings as it was when they were built. If it's melting, yeah, I just went to Manhattan. I was told that the water levels are rising. Nothing's risen. Yep. And I keep telling us how the Seychelles are going to be underwater. Yeah, well, it hasn't happened yet. Big variation from summer to winter here in Cape Town as well as temperature. Okay, well, thank you all for expanding my mind. You're welcome, Grasshopper. I heard that we were the closest to the sun in our journey through space. Oh, well, yeah, well, there's a slight angle. It's not a perfect circle. Yep. Pennsylvania is, I think, a workable climate. Yeah, it's nice. Please tell me you've watched the election promise meeting. No, I didn't. I didn't even know that's what's called. You didn't mention that. You just gave me the name of it. I have it right here. Where did I write it down at? No, that's not it. That is not it. Hang on a second. Where's that thing at? There it is. You didn't say election promise meeting. Okay. I will check it out. No, I didn't have time. I'm busy last night, and then I did videos last night. So I did a video about Fikile Mablula. Someone told me I butchered his name. Sounds fine to me. Winter is coming. No, winter is leaving. We're in the middle of winter right here. I think the sun might be coming out now. Let me see. I can't see because I have my blinds closed. Hang on a second here, folks. All right. Oh, come on. That's not the pin. I hit the wrong numbers. All right, we're at 100% there. So let me take a look on my panels here. It's inching up 1.35. A little bit of sun's getting through, but usually it does about 5 or more kilowatt hours of the 8 hours it's rated for. I may be wrong, but I heard the planet may be greening. Well, yes, of course. If there's more carbon dioxide, think about this. So that's the thing. So this is the problem with these lunatics. They didn't take science class in high school. So I was taught about this amazing process called photosynthesis. Are they denying photosynthesis? It's a virtuous process in which plants, which need carbon dioxide, right? They need carbon dioxide. So the more carbon dioxide is, the more they can grow because they have more of what they need. Mammals, we intake atmosphere. We burn the oxygen in our bodies. We exhale the carbon dioxide with every breath. We produce carbon dioxide and the plants take it up and use it. Now, the argument is that because of industrialization, we're producing a lot more carbon dioxide than is normal. Well, with 9 billion people, we're producing a lot more carbon dioxide than is normal. So what's your point? Anyway, the issue here is what impact does it have? Well, we can sit here and turn off all of our power plants and shut down and freeze to death in sub-zero temperatures like right now. Well, this is telling me I have 2 inches of snow coming. When is that? Let me take a look at that. Snow. 2 inches of snow coming. By 11 a.m. Well, it's 11 o'clock. It hasn't started snowing yet, but apparently it's going to be coming here very soon. Anyway, what's this? Ex-IRS employee leaked Trump's... What was that? What the heck is that? I just saw something said ex-IRS employee leaked Trump's tax returns, intentionally got job to disclose. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Ex-IRS employee who leaked Trump's tax returns intentionally got the job to disclose the records. Wow. Former Internal Revenue Service contractor who leaked tax information about Donald Trump and other wealthy individuals got his job to intentionally spread confidential records. Charles Edward Littlejohn of Washington pled guilty to unauthorized disclosure of tax return. He's scheduled for January 29th. Could face 5 years in prison. I hope he gets 50. Unbelievable. After applying to work as an IRS consultant with the intention of accessing and disclosing tax returns, he weaponizes access to unmasked taxpayer data to further his own personal political agenda, believing that he was above the law. Yep. Exactly right. Exactly right. Wow. This is what these people do. Weather patterns, cyclical. Already got that. I'm just glad the polar bears are going to be fine. Well, I don't know. Polar bears might not be fine. There aren't a lot of them. So, it just takes one virus to wipe out a population. You never know. There is a woolly mammoth, a sloth, and some birds and a crack-addicted squirrel all on a mission to get away from the cold. Don't forget about leaking taps. I didn't, Kurtz. Did you hear me say it? I said leaking taps, 30 to 40% of the water. Look at the Regeneration International on YouTube and see how they regenerate areas and how they become carbon filters. Yep. Also, we saw the guy from Burkina Faso, the man who just passed away at 78 years of age. He took the Sahel, which was being turned to a desert because of misuse, and brought it back to life with the judicious use of plants adapted to drought. It provided shade, which kept the soil cool, which retained the water, which filled the water table, which allowed plants to draw that water up, which regreened the Sahel. What a brilliant man. This is incredible stuff. But anyway, it's all going to end miserably. That's what they claim. Ken says, and for the last few years, our dams are over 90. That's correct, Ken, and that's exactly what happened. When I said, when the rains come, it'll go back to normal. And no one is talking about global climate change in Cape Town and no water. They're also not fixing the pipes or fixing the public taps, the open taps in Kailicha and other places. They're not fixing that. Fikile can fix something. Okay. Chicken madras. Ooh, don't tell me that. I'm starving. Pumping station pipes are screwed. We're losing around 50% of water leaks thanks to new water mafia. Well, there you go, Chris. I said 30 to 40%. That was a few years ago. Saying that a non-existent virus targeted for pandemic prevention measures plus new vaccine does not exist brings up a community notice of fake news. Fake news reported as fake news. Well, I didn't say that. You talking about another video? I didn't say anything about that. Who works in inches? No, it's not a cock measurement. It's a measurement that ruled the world. The British Empire conquered the planet and brought the British imperial system. We still use it. We also use metrics here. As a military person, I use metrics to judge distance. Absolutely. Who works in inches? We do. The imperial system. Standard English equivalent. Polar bears in the north, penguins in the south. That is correct. That is correct. Penguins in the south, polar bears in the north. Yep. Yep. Well, too many people watching Frozen. They think it's, or Happy Feet. What is it? Happy Feet? Is that the one? Happy Feet. All right, folks. Time to get to the news. We've spent about 40 minutes here. It's time to get to the news. Right. So let's, well, that's not it. Wrong one. Let me get my news up on the screen here. And we start off with the Secretary General of the African National Congress, to whom I dedicated a video last night, one Fikile Mabalula, or however you pronounce that. Do the Romans build aqueducts? Yeah, aqueducts work, yes. So, the ANC is sidelined its loudmouth, dangerous politician, Fikile Mabalula, a man who's accomplished nothing in his life except been a patronage boil on society, suckling off the teat of South African taxpayers since his youth, as first the leader of the ANC Youth League, followed by Julius Malema in that position, and then as a deputy minister of police, and then a minister of sports, and let's go minister of police, the minister of transport, and now the secretary general of the African National Congress. Along the way, running his mouth and saying idiotic things and insulting people, calling Bafana losers. Not that they aren't, but that's not your job as sports minister to denigrate the national sports team. This is an African idiot run amok. That's what he is. African as in he's from Africa, not as he's black, because African doesn't mean black for you race hustlers and black supremacists and you white racists out there. It means African from Africa. He's an African idiot. ANC gags Fikile Mabalula amid criticism over his Nkandla fire pool comments. According to National Executive Committee insiders, the ANC's highest decision-making body believed that Mabalula was campaigning against the party. They were upset that he ran his mouth and told the truth about the ANC's subterfuge and duplicity in the Nkandla scandal, lying about the fire pool, the big swimming pool, luxurious swimming pool at the personal estate of former President Jacob Zuma, who stole taxpayer money to pad his nest. Yep. And got away with it. Yet to serve any moment in jail for his crimes against South Africa. Well, the EFF is crying foul, claiming that Action SA's deputy mayor nominee, Nsife Moya, is guilty of fraud. Wow, what's this all about? What's this all about? Now, the journalist, Sisanda Molokwa, looks somewhat like this lady. Anyway, chaos erupted in the Tshwane City Council today as councilors disputed the election of deputy mayor, accusing her of breaking the law. Action SA's former chief of staff for former mayor, Mokolapa, has been nominated by the DA-led coalition. So they say that she pocketed some money for a trip. We know the candidate has contravened the Municipal Finance Management Act. She approved a trip to Saudi Arabia because she had powers to do that. She paid herself pocket money. We have information she did not go on the trip. We want to know if she paid back the 10,000 Rand pocket money. If not, she's not fit to be on the council. Well, quite frankly, why is she getting pocket money? What is that all about? Perhaps we need to take a closer look at how money is dispensed by city officials in South Africa in the Municipal Act. That needs to be looked at. But Action SA candidate now is not being elected. Chaos erupted, so I don't know the current status of that, whether they had the vote or not. They're accusing her of corruption. And this is from an age-old thing. Now, for their part, Action SA and the DA are saying this is political grandstanding. It is political grandstanding, but if she is guilty of corruption, she has no business being there, whether they're grandstanding or not. Turning our attention to the Western Cape in Paarl, the beautiful spot located in the mountains of Southwest Africa. Yeah, Southwest South Africa. Yep, not Southwest Africa. In the Western Cape, Paarl, beautiful spot, vineyards all around, lovely place, very famous for its rugby, Paarl Boys High and others. Well, a senior police officer has exposed herself as being a racist. And this is not a shocker, but probably nothing will happen to her. Paarl is too white, is a comment from the top cop who has activists calling for officers' removal. Paarl's top cop has been suspended after she labeled the area too white in a social media post. Action Society says the police literally kept shooting themselves in the foot with issues they allegedly tried to disguise as internal to supposedly avoid criticism. The Paarl station commander, Brigadier Nokutla Pite, was suspended after she wrote a reply to another officer on Facebook suggesting the officer apply for work at the station. She wrote, "This bald head is just like you. We don't have a lieutenant colonel in finance and accounting, so you get ready." In response, the officer said she was able to go to Paarl the next day and asked Pete to send an email to another SAPS boss. Pete then said, "Put it in and you say transfer finance Paarl. We will sign so I can change this white supremacy because Paarl is white." Wow. Action Society's director Ian Cameron is calling for Pete to be disciplined. I think she should be fired. I think she should be taken to the Human Rights Council. Where's the captured South African Human Rights Council or Commission? The South African Human Rights Commission needs to investigate this race hustling, this racist. I mean, this is. Imagine a white SAPS police station commander, if there are any left, saying something like this about black South Africans. Well, there's too many blacks. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine this? Can you imagine this? Yeah, so people like this person drawing a salary, put in a position of authority. No wonder the police are inept. No wonder they're corrupt. No wonder South Africans are at the mercy of criminal cabals and gangsters, rapists and murderers. No wonder. If this is what you have in the police, and this is not an isolated situation, folks. This is happening every day across South Africa. Racists running the country. And they cry about racism, the legacy of apartheid. You're implementing apartheid now. You're no different than the National Party's policies. In fact, you're more insidious because at least the National Party was a minority trying to keep the majority at bay. You're a majority destroying and murdering and wiping out and eliminating a minority. That's the very reason the Genocide Convention was created. It's the very reason why the United Nations was invented, to protect cultural identities around the world. Wow. Paarl is too white. Wow. Far too many blacks and SAPs to stand up, bottom line. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, all things being equal, 80% of the population is black. So, you should be able to graduate people who are functionally literate and who are competent and can think clearly, lucidly, and cogently, and serve as police officers who are honest. Undemocratic. Authoritarian tendency. DA's MP Kachilia quits the party after dispute over the Israel-Hamas war. When the conflict that Hamas began by butchering people, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, let us remember that the Hamas terrorists didn't kill Jews. in Israel on October 7th. They killed Jews, they killed Christians, they killed Buddhists, they killed Muslims. They killed everybody. They executed, they gang raped, they drove nails into the genitalia of women, they sliced breasts off, they executed people with a bullet in the back of the head. They're beyond sick and twisted. And this man blames Israel for those actions. So the DA pushed him aside, and he didn't like it, so he's getting out. The media is trying to paint this as the DA, more people crumbling. If you support a terror group, you have no business in a political party. Outspoken DA MP Galeb Kachlea has resigned from the party, citing a growing dysfunctional democratic and authoritarian tendency in the party and a clash with the party leadership over his comments on the war in Gaza. Okay, well, look, I get your point. You were pushed aside. But you think it's appropriate as a senior member, as a member of parliament for a political party, to come out supporting a terrorist group? Because it's your right to say that? You can have policy disputes with the DA. What you should have said is you disagree with my party. I disagree with my party's position on this. That's what you should have said. No, this guy wants to play games. And of course, the reason why he's leaving the party is because he was recently demoted. Bye-bye. He's quit the party with immediate effect. In the main, my reasons are the following. The leadership of the DA has become increasingly uncomfortable with my public utterances over the past few months. This mainly concerns issues around the war in Gaza. As a consequence, I've been fired from my position in the shadow cabinet, notwithstanding any connection between my erstwhile portfolio and the events referred to. I've since received a cease and desist notification. In my response to DA leadership, I dispute the validity of any firm and undocumented policy as approved through appropriate structures. So he's claiming there's no policy, saying he's not allowed to contradict his party politically and go against it in the public. Well, you have freedom of speech, buddy, but freedom of speech comes with a cost. So, I have black and Muslim friends, but the last month my feelings toward these two groups have changed negatively. Well, it shouldn't, Trevor. Your feelings shouldn't change towards them if they're your friends. If they're your friends, ostensibly they're your friends because they're legitimate, honest, moral people. And they're not the sort of people who are committing these heinous acts. So I caution you, Trevor, to be careful, to not let yourself be colored, because this is what they want. This is what the Jew haters, the anti-Semites, the black supremacists, the white supremacists, the racists, the bigots, this is what they want. This is why they target people like me, because I treat people fairly and justly and I don't make those distinctions. And they cannot tolerate tolerance. Isn't that funny? The left is intolerant and they cannot tolerate tolerance. The extreme right is also intolerant, but they don't have the power. They're not in ascendancy. So I caution you not to allow that to color your judgment. If they're truly your friends, now if they start acting like idiots, then, abandon them. They're not your friends. One of the big dangers is that there's a single point of being blocked by transactions. Yeah, cryptocurrency's bad. Yep. You can cancel people. Yep. So Western Cape, is Paulie still here? Western Cape fire crews are getting more money. Yep. Western Cape pours money into the wildfire response amid extremely busy fire season. Western Cape government has increased its wildfire fighting budget from 16 to 19 million rand. So that's about $780,000 to $1 million. Well, that's not going to make much of a dent, but at least they got something putting into it. Hopefully that'll help them out. Firefighters contain a blaze on Paarl Mountain. Speaking of Paarl, where the racist police commander is, firefighters contained a blaze that broke out on the slopes of Paarl this morning. The Drakensberg local municipality said the fire had been put out. Firefighting vehicles remain at strategic points to monitor potential flare-ups. Fire season in the Western Cape, of course, runs from December to the end of April, which coincides, of course, with summer, just like anywhere else. Can lying about your credentials get you in trouble? Well, it's interesting because this person has been accused of being a liar or not having a degree, and Ramon Kabanak and Byron Shepard said so on their Retardistan broadcast, saying that, she doesn't have a degree, she's a liar. I don't know that she's a liar, and I'm not disputing what they say, but I think a lot of people are jumping the gun here. It's probably likely she doesn't have the degree, but a lot of people running around and calling her a liar already. You got to be careful there. You got criminal injuria, folks. Got to be careful. Can legal action be taken against economist Tabi Lekoa for lying about her doctorate? Well, you notice they put quotes here because we don't know that she's lying. Economist Tabi Lekoa has been accused of lying about obtaining a doctorate from the London School of Economics. She denied she falsified her doctoral qualifications. In light of the accusations, it's important for businesses to know what their legal recourse is if they find out employees lied about their qualifications. Well, you got lots of recourse. So let me find it down here. If you lie about your The 2019 National Qualifications Framework Amendment Act was signed into law by Ramaphosa. This means prospective students or job seekers could face up to 5 years in jail for misrepresenting their qualifications. It should also be noted under the law that if you lie about your qualifications on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter, you could also see jail time. Isn't it interesting that South Africa, we're focused on putting people who lie in jail, except members of the government or the media. But rapists and murderers are allowed to run rampant in South Africa. Yeah. No, it's good. People should, but 5 years in jail for lying, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. Do you think that person could come out and be a contributor to society? No. 4 people arrested in the murder of a Hawks police officer, senior officer. 4 people have been arrested in the connection with the kidnapping and murder of senior SAP's Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks officer, Lieutenant Colonel Siketo Mawila. He was attached to a serious organized crime unit in Durban and was allegedly accosted by the suspects while traveling back to the city for work. His family raised alarm after he'd stopped for petrol and then was not heard from again. According to Hawks spokesperson, the suspects aged 23 to 44 arrested Wednesday morning in a joint operation by the East Rand Serious Organized Crime Investigation Team of the Hawks with Gauteng's Traffic Special Law Enforcement Unit and Ekurhuleni Metro Station's Saturation Task Team. Joint operation made by the multidisciplinary team resulted in arrest and seizure of a cell phone, laptop belonging to the deceased, a service pistol with live ammunition, a carjack, a wallet, a pair of running shoes, a suitcase, keys, a cooler box, as well as a knife. And the burnt vehicle that was hijacked was also found. Wow, they just kill senior police officers with impunity in South Africa. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the troubled former fly half of the Sharks and Springbok, never really should have been a Springbok, Elton Jantjies has received a 4-year ban for using an illicit substance, violating the standards of rugby union. Embattled former Springbok fly half Elton Jantjies is banned for 4 years from rugby following suspension for taking a prohibited substance. Clenbuterol, used to help burn fat and by asthma sufferers, promotes increased stamina in athletes. The 33-year-old was first suspended in August when the findings were made public. He subsequently moved for his legal team to instruct them for another sample to be tested, and that's also come back positive. Wow. He didn't make the Springboks. Also got in a scandal with a trainer, reportedly having an affair with her, left off the team, and now Jantjies is done. He's 33. 4 years from now, he's not coming back. He's not coming back. Maybe he should go with Sonny Bill Williams and play rugby league. The N7 is closed. Wow, I didn't see that. It's okay. There's an image of an LSD PhD in social media, but it has no serial number and seal. Well, we don't know the authenticity of the provenance of that image, Casper. I don't know if that's legitimate or somebody doctored that or altered it with deep fakes. So I don't know what to say with that. I'm not going to comment on it. Right. Nobody knows why Home Affairs canceled 700,000 IDs. Only because the woman from Swaziland came out and sued them. So why do they want BE? White people can't get employment. That's why our skilled workers. There's a very good reason for BE, Kurtz, because it ensures a patronage network of loyal people to the party. If because you're black, the ANC gives you a contract and doesn't even follow through to see if you actually fulfill the contract and makes you rich from the state fiscus as a consequence of that, you owe loyalty to them. And if you don't toe the line or help them or raise money for the party or vote for them, then they take it away. And they don't care if they destroy the economy. I mean, look, they have BEE tenders for school books in the Eastern Cape. And they don't care that school kids don't get books. They have tenders for repairing schools in the Eastern Cape. They don't care whether schools get repaired or not. I mean, this is a government where the ANC was in charge of Port Elizabeth, Habana, in the Eastern Cape, in charge of that province, in charge of that town, excuse me. And they returned 63 million rand of funding, money given by the national government, led by the ANC, down to provincial and local level to pay for food, for feeding programs for infants and small children to prevent malnourishment. 16 infants and small toddlers died, starved to death in Port Elizabeth under the ANC's watch because they returned 63 million rand. They returned it. It wasn't like they didn't allocate for it. It's not like they didn't budget. It's not like they were callous and they didn't care. They were incompetent. They had 63 million rand that was meant to buy food for hungry children. And they returned it to the national government. And children died. The ANC, Port Elizabeth, look it up. Factual. No embellishment here. Nothing but the facts here. Unbelievable. Peter O'Mahony will be the captain of Ireland for the Six Nations after Johnny Sexton retires. Peter O'Mahony now will be the captain for Ireland in their defense of the Six Nations crown, with head coach Andy Farrell declaring that the veteran back rower is a born leader. I agree. O'Mahony, who's 34 steps in the huge vacuum left by Johnny Sexton, who retired after Ireland got beat in the World Cup. The Munster star has skippered Ireland on 10 previous occasions, though it had been thought that the younger James Ryan was being groomed for the young... Well, no, James Ryan, please, no. Inappropriate. Peter O'Mahony's the right guy. He faces a real humdinger of a first match as they face France in Marseille on February 2nd. Well, good luck, Peter O'Mahony. France, February 2nd. Unrest has broke out in Comoros after Azumani was reelected, and it's crazy stuff. Comoros declared a curfew yesterday after security forces clashed with protesters angered by the re-election of President Azali Azumani in a vote opposition leaders denounced as fraudulent. Almost nobody voted in this thing. The measure was to start at 10 p.m. and last until 6 a.m. today, except for Moroni, where it kicked in a few hours earlier. Wow. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Anyway, man. Comoros, will we see South African peacekeepers deployed there again? Stay tuned. Well, the African Union is deploying Obasanjo to deal with the growing row over the Somaliland-Ethiopia agreement. The former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, whom I know, he's a very interesting fellow. Former Nigerian President Obasanjo has been deployed by the Peace and Security Council of the African Union to negotiate de-escalation between Ethiopia and Somalia before it develops into a full-blown war. Yep, last week Somalia said it was ready for war. Yeah, right. Okay, so how about egg on our face, European Union, United States, Department of State? We funded and trained the Somali National Force. Now they're threatening to start a war in Somaliland over Somaliland's sovereignty. Wow. There's a little bit of egg on your face. Well, Russia and Niger, kissing cousins. No surprise here after the French are kicked out of Niger. They agreed to develop military ties. Well, that's not going to go very well. According to Russian news agencies, Russian Deputy Defense Ministers Yunisbek Yevkurov and Alexander Fomin met Niger's junta-appointed Defense Minister Modi on Tuesday. The parties noted the importance of developing Russia-Niger relations in the defense sector and agreed to intensify joint actions to stabilize the situation in the region. The ministry did not provide details about its plans. Well, I'll tell you what. They need to be very careful when they tread this path because they will piss off the United States, who has provided them all of their defense resources in the past 10, 15 years. I know this because I was the one there providing it for them. Shannon says, I'm here on the move, though it's choppy stream because I'm not on Wi-Fi. Court today said, yes, I'll get to that. I am going to talk about Maine. I'm here on the move. Okay. Oh, she's typing it. She must be, the card's coming through. Should be paid useless. Yep. Okay. Protests are up in Tunisia as a town searches for 37 missing migrants. Residents in the town of El Hancha are waiting to hear news of loved ones who disappeared crossing the Mediterranean. Let me clarify something very quickly. They aren't residents of El Hancha. These are criminal alien invaders. Residents are legal residents, not people who show up and occupy space. These aren't residents. This is nonsense. Calling these people's residents is dishonest, Al Jazeera. But they do use a new term, which I haven't seen used previously, which describes these criminal alien invaders. A boat said to be carrying some 37 irregular migrants and asylum seekers has gone missing off the coast of Sfax. Relatives described receiving final phone calls at about 2:30 as the boat was setting out. By around 10 p.m. the same night, all contact with the boat and its passengers had been lost. Other than 3 or 4 people from elsewhere in Tunisia, all the boat's passengers are reported to be from a small village. Oh, they are Tunisians. What? So the Tunisians are now fleeing. Oh, I stand corrected. They are. Well, they intend to be criminal alien invaders. 13 to 35 years old. Frustrated by the lack of news since the boat's disappearance, the families of missing undocumented migrants. Oh, wait a second. Are they Tunisians or are they undocumented migrants? Make up your mind here. This story is very confusing. Wow. Tunisian National Guard released a statement saying that all field units, including maritime vessels, have been mobilized to find the 37 passengers. Maltese and Italian units are also out searching for them. These people wasting resources that could be devoted to more important missions because people seek to criminally alien invade another country. Get on a plane, get on a proper boat, cross at a border crossing, land at a port facility, and present your credentials for entering the country. If not, stay where you're at, and you won't die. Well, the U.S. is ramping up its attacks against the Houthi with a fourth round of airstrikes in Yemen. The Washington Times reports. Central Command said its troops targeted 14 missiles that were loaded to be fired in Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen and presented an imminent threat to merchant vessels and U.S. Navy ships. The missiles could have been fired at any time. So the U.S. acted with urgency or else risked the Houthis launching yet another round of attacks against commercial ships in the Red Sea. Well, this conflict is just really getting out of hand. Here's another war that's starting now. Pakistan retaliates with strikes inside Iran as tensions spill over. The exchange of attacks come as the upheaval sweep Middle East threatened to expand. An expansion of hostilities rippling through the region. Pakistan said Thursday it had carried out strikes against Iran a day after Iranian forces attacked what they said were militant camps in Pakistan. The Pakistani Foreign Affairs Ministry said the country's forces had conducted precision military strikes against what it called terrorist hideouts in southeastern Iran. This is insane, folks. Now Iran is attacking Iraq and Syria. Iran is attacking Pakistan. When will Iran next attack Azerbaijan or Georgia or Russia? This is a rogue, out of control regime given succor by the likes of the ANC. Unbelievable. Another war. Another war. I can't keep track of this, folks. I can't keep track of this. This afternoon, I have to take a few moments and just make a slide of all the wars currently going because the failed, cowardly, callow, weak-willed, those all mean the same thing, foreign policy of Jackass Joe's administration. Wow, this is unbelievable. Now Pakistan and Iran are at war. Well, the United States has barred former president of Guatemala from entering the country. The United States, the Biden regime is determined that he accepted bribes. Guatemala's former president is barred from entering the U.S. for accepting bribes just days after the improvised impoverished Central American nation inaugurated a new president who vowed to root out corruption amid an open confrontation with much of the country's establishment. We've heard this before, rooting out corruption. U.S. State Department on Wednesday said that Alejandro Giammattei was ineligible for entry to the U.S. because of credible information indicating that he was involved in significant corruption during his tenure as president, undermining the rule of law. Well, there you go. We are a sovereign nation. We can do that, but interesting that we've done that nonetheless. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, some good news here in Barbados. Two young ladies, aged 13 and 14, saved a British couple from drowning. Interesting story here. What really sticks in my mind is the calmness of these children, Belinda Stone said of the girls who saved her and her husband, who were both in their 60s. Emma Bosserman and Zoe Ireland Melendix saved a UK couple from drowning in Barbados. We were floating around saying how blissful this was, what a terrific holiday, etc. We swam out, not far, but enough to be out of our depth. The couple who live in London were both relatively strong swimmers, so they felt fully confident being in the ocean, but they hadn't considered just how strong the current was that day on January 3rd. They had been to Barbados several times. They didn't realize the specific area they drifted to was known for its strong riptide. They noticed they were floating in the direction of a neighboring beach, so they decided to swim toward the beach against the current. She soon realized her husband was trailing behind and was too far away to even hear her. She attempted to swim to shore to get help, but struggled to get past him. I just couldn't get anywhere, she said, the 64-year-old, who began to scream out for a lifeguard, but no one came after a few minutes. Thank heavens I left our wills on the dining room table, she thought to herself. Two teenage girls, Emma Basserman, 14, and Zoe Ireland McLennox, were boogie boarding near the shore. Zoe spotted Belinda, was about 85 feet away, and heard her cries for help. The two girls, both of whom live in Montreal, swam toward her. They quickly reached Belinda, and Zoe helped pull her onto her boogie board. Belinda was drained from fighting the current and worried about her husband. She said her husband was further out and was struggling to swim. The girls swam parallel to the shore and brought her to safety. And again, repeated their husband was still further out. The girls told her it wasn't a lifeguard around. They reassured they would go get him. Wow, there are some adults on the beach, but the girls were the only ones at the water's edge. They finally reached the 68-year-old Robert after a few minutes. He was shocked and he was really out of breath. He was really stressed. Wow. Wow. Well, there's a good news story, folks. How often do we get to tell good news stories? How often do we get to tell good news stories? Well done, young ladies. But dangerous. Dangerous. Of course, they're already out in the water, so it's not like they went out in the water to save people. That's what happened with the Navy SEAL. One of the Navy SEALs fell off the ladder on that dhow that had Iranian weapons being smuggled to the Houthi, and the other jumped in to save him in the rough seas. They both appear to have drowned, and who knows if we'll ever find their bodies. But these two young ladies were already in the water with their boogie boards, and they saved this elderly couple. Wow. Wow. Northern Ireland grinds to a halt as unions stop the country. Unions representing approximately 170,000 of the 225,000 public sector workers called for a 24-hour strike. Northern Ireland's biggest public sector strike in a generation shut schools, halted transport service, and left icy roads ungridded in sub-zero temperatures with people warned to only travel or seek medical help in emergency. Wow. They are striking because they have not gotten pay rises despite multi-decade high inflation following the collapse of the region's power-sharing government in early 2022. So they want more money, and they've shut the country down. Workers held ransom. Well, how about the country being held ransom by public service workers? Public service workers should not be striking. You have a duty of care to society. That's your responsibility. Well, speaking of shutdowns, another government shutdown is looming here in America, where our idiotic government can't pass a budget. Congress is lurching up against another deadline to prevent government shutdown. House Speaker Mike Johnson of Republican Louisiana and Senate Majority Leader Chucky Schumer of New York have reached a $1.66 trillion plan to finance the government for the rest of this fiscal year. But Congress has run out of time to pass that proposal before funding expires Saturday. Instead, leaders in both chambers say Congress needs to pass a short-term spending measure. Well, that's from the Washington Post, and they're trying to drown us in debt. As was mentioned a short while ago by Shannon Dixon, a Maine court has put on hold the idiotic decision of, was it Shannon Bellows? Is that her name? Maine court puts Trump ballot decision on hold until after Supreme Court acts. A Maine court on Wednesday ordered the state's top election official to reevaluate a decision to bar former President Trump from the Republican primary after the U.S. Supreme Court rules on a related case from Colorado. The judge ordered Maine Secretary of State, the dingbat doorknob Shanna Bellows, a demon rat, to reassess her decision to bar Trump from the ballot within 30 days after the Supreme Court rules. In December, Bellows determined that Trump, the frontrunner, was ineligible based on her learned opinion as an appointed political activist. Yep. Lake and Heath, I've been there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Jackass Joe's administration's lawlessness is now prompting people to act in a lawless fashion, despite the fact that student loan borrowers were given a generous gift of holiday of 3 years of no loan repayments with no interest accrued on debt that they compiled for their education to increase their lifetime earnings at the expense and on the back of the American taxpayer. These arrogant asshats don't want to pay back their loans. 40% are refusing to pay back their loans, or I think only 40% are paying it. Student loan borrowers refuse to pay and prod the Biden regime to pony up more debt forgiveness in an election year. Americans saddled with student debt are boycotting repayment to force Biden to forego their loans. Wow. Since the federal government stopped the 3-year pandemic pause on student loan repayments last October, only 40% of borrowers have actually paid all their monthly obligations, while 35% have made some payments and 25% haven't made any. They're boycotting paying. They're simply refusing to pay the debt that they accrued. This is insane. The entire financial system will collapse, which apparently is the objective here, if people continue to be allowed to be deadbeats. Next will come credit card holidays. Next will come relief for that idiocy. Ladies and gentlemen, the corrupt nature of the effort to get Donald Trump is beyond the pale. Have you ever heard of a lawsuit in which a defendant's parent died or in-law died and a judge refused to postpone for one day to allow the person to attend the funeral of someone who passed away? Well, that's the situation we have with this fascist judge in New York. Trump, to attend his mother-in-law's funeral, will miss the Jean Carroll trial after a nasty judge refuses to delay. Former President Trump said he will miss John Carroll's trial today so that he can attend his mother-in-law's funeral, blasting the judge presiding over the case as nasty for not delaying court proceedings for the day. As you know, the First Lady's mother passed away. The funeral's tomorrow. And we would have assumed that for a trial like this, it's not an emergency in terms of timing. The judge would have been very nice, and they would let me go because I want to be at every trial day because I saw what happened in the first one where I was asked not to go by the lawyers very much. They said it's demeaning. There was no evidence. There was no anything. And so I didn't go, and I understood exactly what it meant when he said it was demeaning. There's no reason to go, and you shouldn't go. He said, Judge is a radical Trump hater, and he would go to all days. So it happened very terribly as we asked to just delay the trial for one day so I could go to the funeral, so we could start on Friday or Monday. And he said, absolutely not. The trial will go on as it is. Wow. This, of course, is related to Jean Carroll, an octogenarian who accused Trump of raping her 3 decades ago with no physical evidence, no witness statements, no police report filed, simply her word. Simply her word. Me too. Now, Nikki Haley, according to the Wall Street Journal, has a problem in South Carolina. It's Trump territory. The former president has a big advantage thanks to his popularity in the state. Nikki Haley's long-shot strategy to win the Republican presidential nomination is to pull off an upset in New Hampshire next week over Trump and then beat him in her home state. Good luck with that. Haley turns 52 years old on Saturday. She grew up in a small town of Bamberg, went to Clemson, and spent most of her political career in the Palmetto State, serving as governor from 2011 to 2017. Despite her deep personal ties and political legacy, Trump has been considered the front-runner. She lags behind him by 30 points in most state polls. Wow. So she's going to get thumped again in South Carolina. She's going to get thumped again. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's an interesting story. And this is religious discrimination, or is it a company having a right to take action against employees who are misbehaving? You decide. It could be argued either way. Alaska Airlines union cooperated in firing a flight attendants for biblical beliefs, according to the lawyer. 2 Alaska Airlines flight attendants who were fired for posting biblically based comments on a company message board are seeking summary ruling in a wrongful termination lawsuit following disclosures that airline officials and the attendants' labor union cooperated in removing them. Flight attendants Marley Brown and Lacey Smith were represented by First Liberty Institute, a conservative Christian legal nonprofit. Both had independently asked about the airline's public support for the Equality Act that would add LGBTQ protections to federal civil rights law. As a company, do you think it's possible to regulate morality? Ms. Smith posted on an internal message board. Does Alaska support endangering the church, encouraging suppression of religious freedom, obliterating women's rights and parental rights? In testimony for the lawsuit, the company's vice president in flight said that employees use the words opposite sex, implying there are only 2 genders, well, because there are, violates an airline's anti-discrimination policy. In addition, a Google chat thread among officials at the Association of Flight Attendants, which represents them, shows the labor union supported their ouster. And this is what was written. Can we please get someone to shut down comments or put Marley and Lacey in a burlap bag and drop them in a well? Terry Taylor, then president of the local executive council. Wow. The lawyer says the evidence is so clear of anti-religious animosity, anti-religious hostility from the airline, also from the union that was supposedly representing these flight attendants. We think it's clear they violated the law, and if you just look at the undisputed facts, the airline clearly says they were firing the flight attendants, and if it's clear that they fired them because of their religious beliefs. Yeah, so the airline does not have a right to do this. What they wrote was not controversial. It wasn't harmful to anyone. It was on a company website where employees were allowed to post, and they simply asked a question about the company supporting this policy, which goes against their religious beliefs. This is clear violation of federal law. And this company, Alaska Airlines, must be exposed for its anti-Christian beliefs, its hatred of Americans, and for its misogyny in firing 2 female employees for exercising their First Amendment rights. Yep, and the union should be disbanded, and that person should be taken to civil court over his actions and sued for all he's worth. Woo! Well, one of the squad lawmakers, hey folks, I have an update. This is a story about Sparky. You guys know who Sparky is, right? Sparky. Mm-hmm. Paulie knows what I'm talking about. Sparky, our friendly member of Congress, who is our firefighter. Sparky the firefighter who pulls fire alarms to interfere with official proceedings and gets no consequences. Not bundled off to a rendition site, not locked in a DC jail where he's assaulted and attacked by racist jailers, not kept without charge for 36 months in violation of the due process and speedy trial conditions of the Constitution. No, Sparky gets a pass because he's black and he's in Congress, and well, you can do that. You can interfere with official proceedings if you're a member of Congress and not suffer consequences. But God forbid, being a private citizen, minding your own business, going to a public demonstration, which the Capitol Police gave 5 permits for permitting it to happen, and staying outside of the controlled zone, you'll find yourself in the docket because that's how we treat Americans in this fascist state of the United States. So, Sparky, our famous firefighter, now has another proposition. You ready for this? This I had to save for the end. Squad lawmaker explains a creative way to raise $14 trillion for slave reparations, moral and legal obligation. The New York lawmaker wants the federal government to push for a $14 trillion reparations measure. The measure, touted by Squad member Representative Jamal Bowman, Demon Rat, New York. You know Jamal Bowman, Sparky. Fire alarm, fire alarm, fire alarm. Sparky, our firefighter, Bowman. Sparky Bowman has said that he wants the federal government to be held accountable for slavery. Will you hold African tribes in the Ashanti Kingdom responsible for it? Will you hold people in Dalmate responsible for it? Will you hold the Arab slave traders responsible for it? Will you hold the criminal syndicates today responsible for it? No, I don't think so, Sparky. So sit down and shut up. You're an uninformed idiot, and the fact you're in Congress is a stain on this nation. Ooh, that'll probably be perceived as racist because, well, I can't criticize him because he's black. Bowman cited the federal government's response to the COVID pandemic and its space race endeavors as examples of what would make the measure feasible. When COVID was destroying us, we invested in the American people in a way that kept the economy afloat. No, we didn't. We destroyed the economy. We buried ourselves in debt and we destroyed the economy. Do you think giving people $300 in payments saved the American economy and kept it afloat? What a moron. The government can invest the same way in reparations without raising taxes as anyone. That's not an investment. That's debt. Where did the money come from? We spent it into existence. What a moron. He's one of 9 sponsors of House Representatives 414 bill, which seeks to establish the U.S. has a moral and legal obligation to provide reparations to the enslavement of Africans and its lasting harm on the lives of millions of black people in the United States. Get screwed. Get screwed. You're just a grifting thief. Black population in America is 12%. The bill comes 3 decades after another bill that sought to assemble a federal commission to study reparations. The measure established federal commission and the impact of reparations was reintroduced this year, and Bowman is a sponsor of it. He's just a race-hustling racist. That's what you are, Sparky. Sparky, the wonder. There you go, folks. And we end our news broadcast today, not leaving at the moment, but we're ending the news portion of this by telling you that Sparky wants reparations. Sparky thinks that the American taxpayer should be held responsible for the past misdeeds of people who've been long dead. And I think that Sparky is an uninformed idiot who likes to pull fire alarms to commit federal felonies and interfere with official proceedings, yet gets a free pass because he's a member of Congress and he's black. Those are the 2 reasons why. Yep. What else? All the nonsense that you hear from the rest of the world first happened in South Africa. That's true, Grasshopper. That's true. Fees must fall. Yeah, exactly. Lived in Lakenheath. Okay. I've been to Lakenheath. I didn't live there. Stephanie Hatzemichael. Hey, Stephanie. Long time. Good to see you back there. Good to see you back. Kurt says Biden, the most useless president, seems he's taking pointers from South Africa. He is. Now you pique my nose credentials. I cannot wait to see you again. I'm not sure what Garrett's talking about there. Doing things differently, so I target myself. Shannon says, have a good day. Okay. Seychelles are more beautiful than Comoros. Oh, yes, they are. Much more beautiful. And they have legitimate government there. Yep. All right, so that's everybody in the stream. I hope you're all doing well there, folks. What do you think about Fidel Adams and the CCC? I've interviewed Fidel Adams before. I was supposed to interview him. Did I interview Fidel Adams? I think I did that. Let me see if it's on here. Can't remember if I did it. No, Anwar Adams, not Fidel Adams. Sorry, Anwar Adams. That's my interview. Anwar Adams, not Fidel Adams. Sorry, wrong one. I'll reserve comment on it for right now, Grasshopper. The world is checking what scams dry run. Yeah, no kidding, Spiker Hunt. You're correct. They're running all the scams. It looks like I'm not going to get any sun because I'm only at 2.8 kilowatt hours, so it's not really much. The sun is obscured by the clouds and just getting a little bit, but it hasn't started snowing. I don't think it was supposed to start snowing an hour ago. So anyway, is Trump the American Zuma? No. Trump is not at all like Zuma. Trump is a legitimate leader who accomplished a great in this period. You know, it's interesting to see Jamie Dimon come out yesterday and said, you know, the Democrats need to grow up. Trump was right about so many things, and that's why people support him. He's right about China. He's right about trade. He's right about taxes. He's right about, you know, so anyway, just because he's a cad doesn't mean he wasn't right. So anyway, there you go, folks. All right, that's going to do it. I'm going to wrap it up here. I hate to go with 83 people, but I need to take a break, folks, and stretch my legs before and go collect my trash cans. It's Rubbish Removal Day. The private company that I pay to remove my rubbish has come, picked up the recyclables. Next truck came, picked up the rubbish. It's gone. Trash cans laying out on the sidewalk. I need to pick them up and bring them back into the garage, as the brew would say. Remember the brew? The garage. He can always correct me for saying garage, but then I'm an American, not a South African. So, yeah, Sparky sounds like my gardener. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching. By the way, let me refresh this page and see what the stats are. So the video I did on Fikile Mabalula is tapered off now. That's still growing. It's at 2,500. Okay, that's pretty cool. A little slower now. And then the one I did, the short one on my mobile phone, which proves that when I switch IP addresses, it has a difference. That one now has, let's see, 14,000 views. 14,000 views. It slowed down from yesterday's big pace. We're picking up about 100 people per hour watching it. So that's great. Wish it was 1,000 per hour. But 121 new subscribers courtesy of that. So if you're a new subscriber courtesy of that video, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. People finding my channel and actually growing in the right direction for the first time in donkey years. We're now at 13,923. When we were stuck, we got to 13,750, and then over the course of 6 weeks, YouTube whittled that down almost to 13,700. We went nowhere instead of growing, and now in just 2 days, we've gone 200 plus new viewers, so that's a little bit better. Why didn't one of you beer drinkers warn me that Hansa Pilsner is a cock beer? Well, it is a cock beer. When are we doing another Owls bribe ruse? Keen to hear you and Byron. Well, Paulie, I've got some things going on. I will have Fireside with the Colonels next week. Also, the Conscious Caracles committed to coming back on the program. I'm going to try to start getting some interviews, but I've got a lot going on. And with all the rugby games on the weekend, it's difficult. I mean, I've got 5 games this weekend, and then we got the Six Nations coming up in February. URC comes back. So, but yes, we'll get back to Byron and I talking sometime soon. Absolutely. But Night Owls won't be today. Maybe tomorrow I might do a Night Owls. It's Friday. We'll see if people want to watch it. Friday is a good time, I suppose, to do a Night Owls. People can chill at home, enjoy a nice glass of Pinot Grigio or wine. No, don't be disrespecting Hansa. If anything, Kassel. No, they're all crap beer. I mean, if it's not brewed by the German Reinheitsgebot, it's not beer. It's piss water. Paulie the Penguin Whisperer. That's pretty good, Endo. I like that. Paulie the Penguin. No, I'm the Penguin Whisperer. Paulie hasn't been to see the Penguins. I've been there. I cover the Penguins, man. You can see it right there in my opening credits. Anyway, you guys take care. And you'll be automatically redirected to Wednesdays with the Colonel if you want to hang around for that. And we'll see you over there. Wednesdays with the Colonel. Thanks a lot, folks. And take care of yourselves. It's a pleasure having you with me once again for the news from around Africa and around the world. Always a pleasure. Thanks for, what, did we get any super chats in this one? We did get a super chat earlier on. Thank you for that. And no new members, but a lot of people here, 71 as we wrap up. Have a good one, folks. God bless.